It's the truth about parenting.
Something needs to be real for us.
The truth is in the raw things that people don't talk about. This journey is not for the weak. Welcome to the Mama Jack podcast. Hi, Sharon. How are you today?
I am fine. How are you this morning?
I'm doing good. I got a friend babysitting the kids right now. I had an interview earlier and there was a rattling on my door. I was like, it's like, give me a minute. Give me a minute. But other than that, I'm good. I'm good. So why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
I first want to say thank you for having me on your show, and I hope that my message can resonate with your listeners. But as my name is Sharon Surita, I guess by trade I'm an environmental engineer turned functional diagnostic nutrition practitioner, following a pretty intense disability. I'm not sure if your listeners, well, actually, a lot of the population is not aware of what mesh implant illness is, but it's similar to breast implant illness, which is, I guess, becoming a little bit more well known. But the reason I bring that up is I went through a surgery in 2019 that was supposed to be a pretty quick recovery time, 2 or 3 weeks tops. And it was the gold standard easy repair of a hernia and a muscle repair for moms out there. Many moms probably have experienced some muscle separation during pregnancy. And in my case, with my second child, I had a pretty large baby. So I had a severe diastasis recti,
Mhm.
so muscle separation, and developed a couple of hernias from there. So I had a surgery to repair that. And I can go into this a little bit more, but I was really adamant against having a synthetic mesh because I had already heard about lawsuits and a lot of issues. So I insisted on a biologic mesh. However, I was implanted with a mixture of the two. So a biosynthetic mesh. They call it a hybrid mesh. Although it was mostly biologic, it still had some synthetics, and my body did not like it from day one. So I came out of surgery and immediately feeling sick as if I had the worst flu of all time and never recovered from that. Like months and months of dealing with all of these symptoms that you get when you have like a flu. I can't even explain it other than severe nausea, dizziness, lightheadedness, syncope episodes, which is when, in my case, I had POTS, which is postural orthostatic tachycardia syndrome. So I would frequently pass out or come close to passing out. And obviously, we can't really do much when if we stand up, we have these episodes. So I started losing mobility, and I eventually became bedbound within the first 3 weeks, you could say,
Dang.
and I was bedbound for many months, many months.
My goodness. That is horrible. So when did they finally realize what was happening and what had to happen? I'm assuming you got it removed, right?
Yes, I did. I was fortunate in that I already had a background in, environmental toxins. So I could kind of connect the dots. I joined some support groups. A lot of us tend to look for people who are experiencing similar symptoms. And since I knew point blank the date of my illness, like the day before, I had run 3 miles with my children outside. They were on their bikes, they weren't
Mhm.
running. I was running after them. I lifted weights. I did my normal routine in the weekend. I went in for surgery and just symptoms. So I would say it was probably 3 or 4 weeks before I reached out to support groups, and those would be like hernia support groups, and then I found mesh implant support groups, and from there it kind of just the information became available in terms of specialists out there, hernia specialists, not just general surgeons that practice in removal, replacement, and things like that. But there's a handful of good surgeons in the United States, and there's international surgeons too, but a handful that acknowledge mesh implant illness. They call it Asia syndrome or foreign body reaction. So they acknowledge it, and I think just that was step 1, finding the surgeon that believed that this could have been the cause, like, understood that there's nothing else, no other pre-existing conditions that could have contributed to this. So it was either the surgery itself or the foreign body within me. And I think that was it. Like, once I knew that this was the case, I just kept advocating and advocating, probably 15 or so surgeons before I came across one all the way in Ohio. I live in Florida. So I had to fly to Ohio before I found a surgeon that validated the condition. And I've been advocating ever since. Like, it was 4 months for my explant. Some people, unfortunately, they go long time, 2, 3, 4 years. Some people have not been able to have an explant as of yet. And they've had similar symptoms.
Oh my goodness. So what did that leave you with afterwards?
Yeah, so my chance of a recurrence is very, very high. So the first doctor, that I saw that again, validated that I may need a mesh removal, he gave me a 50-50 shot, a 50-50 shot, and at that point, I said I would take it because to be completely disabled, not even just the mobility constraints, but just the overall sickness and the inability to connect with anyone, friends, family. Like, I had the 2 young children. At the time, my youngest was 3 years old, and then my oldest was, I guess he was almost 9 at the time. But, I just during that time, there's first 4 months, I could not connect with them. I was so sensitive to noise, to odors, lights even, so I couldn't do anything with them. And so I took that risk, the 50-50 shot. I did find a second surgeon who was a little more local to me, also a hernia specialist, who told me it would be more of a 30% chance of recurrence. And again, at that point, I was like, no, if I can have the surgery, the sooner the better, I'm going to do it, even if it was
Yeah,
50-50. Mhm.
yeah. Because I could imagine. And how old were you at the time?
I was I wanna say 38 going to 39. It was like 2 or 3 weeks before my 39th
Oh my
birthday.
God.
I'm doing the math.
Ugh,
Yeah.
that is ridiculous. So you've had that surgery, right? Okay.
Mhm.
And how do you feel now?
I feel a lot more functional, and it took 3 years to get to where I am
Mhm.
today. This is 3 years post-explant. I went the whole gambit. I was searching for help because when I had the removal, some of those symptoms did clear up a little bit, but I had such severe autonomic dysfunction at this point. Autonomic nervous system was why I'm fried. You might as well for to say fried. That I still had severe brain fog, and I still was not able to eat solid foods. Slow motility, a lot of gastric issues, and the brain fog was really, really crazy. Like, I'm very analytical, and my background, again, engineering, I went to school, I received my PhD in 2015. So I like the math and science, and I couldn't do simple math for a while. Like, I couldn't help my children with their homework, even elementary
Yeah.
school homework. So going back to, the things that changed, it was those 3 years that I was just running around a traditional, conventional medicine, going to all the specialists, you name it, cardiologist, gastroenterologist, endocrinologist, even psychiatry. Like, I tried it all, and I just wasn't getting anywhere. I was still feeling kind of hopeless, and, I wasn't as hopeless as I was in the initial, like, before the explant, but I was still feeling like I'm never gonna be able to get out of the house again. Just Yeah, it's tough, especially with children at home, and you wanna see them grow and
Yeah.
excel.
Yeah, for sure. So do you get out of the house at all now? How did you do that transfer if you do now? What happened in that whole process?
Yeah, I think it was a mindset shift. First, that I had to understand that mobility was limited and that there were aids that I could use, and not I shouldn't be embarrassed about them. So,
Mhm.
I started off with a rollator, and I still use that from time to time if it's long distance being outside. I do have a wheelchair that I use, again, if I'm gonna be outside for extended amount of time. In the house, I can manage to get around, without assistance because I have everything laid out. Like, you just learn to
Yeah.
acclimate and make things comfortable for you to get around. So my home is as comfortable as it can be for me. I have a very nice backyard in terms of being able to expose myself to sunlight and put my bare feet on the ground and do these mindfulness practices. So all those things are very key. And again, after the 3 years when I transitioned to functional medicine, that's when I also worked with a dysautonomia specialist. She's a nutritionist and completely revamped my diet now. I've tried all the major diets out there. If your listeners are familiar with carnivore diet, the ketogenic diet, that probably veganism, I've tried them all. And it wasn't until I really committed to a modified GAPS diet that I was able to remove all those foods that I was very sensitive to. I had a lot of mast cell flares, so any kind of foods that I was eating kept triggering me, and I couldn't figure it out until I got
Yeah,
into this very strict diet. So that I think was a pivotal piece too, between switching the mindset, saying instead of "I'm gonna be disabled forever," saying that I'm going to make the most of my surroundings and try to find activities that I can do with the people around me, and I'm going to start eliminating as many food toxins and chemical toxins as possible.
that's great. And I'm sure it took a lot of pretty low points for you to finally switch that decision, right? I mean, I could imagine your whole life changed. Like, you didn't ask for any of this, and you were doing something, you were doing a surgery to make yourself better that is a routine surgery that you probably could pick like 100 people that have had the same thing, and this didn't happen to them. Interesting enough, my mom has had a surgery, a hernia surgery. I'm not sure if they use the mesh or not, but she has not healed from it, and it's been like
Mm.
years, years, and she still gets like right now, it's crazy. It's like random stitches will come out that were
Wow.
inside of her. So
Yeah,
like
that
she'll see this one little thing and it'll like open up like a wound at first, and she's like, "Oh, another stitch is coming," and
Mhm.
it's just coming out. And she has to go to the doctor and they cut it out. It's like the craziest thing because I think the surgery she had was like, I want to say at least 7 years ago. It was a
Wow.
long time ago. And they're thinking about doing the mesh too, but her hernia is so big now that it's like, does she just live with it? Or, does she do the other part of it? Because, yeah, they had to cut out, I want to say like 7 feet of intestine. It was something
Oh,
crazy. Yeah,
yeah,
she was going septic. So, oh, yeah, people don't realize how easily that can happen. And yes, after having a kid, those tummy muscles, sometimes they don't want to go back. And it's
right.
nothing you did, it's just your body, it's just your body. Oh my
Mhm.
goodness. So,
Yeah. 2
how,
things that I wanted to say about your mom real
mhm,
quick. Her body's doing what it was designed to do, obviously, like trying to eject the foreign material that's in there. And it sounds like she might have had sutures only. She could potentially have or mesh, but in any case, most of those sutures are made out of polypropylene or polyester, and it's still plastic. So the body's trying to eject it. And you did mention that she has a substantially larger sized
mhm,
hernia. So just the one thing that I always tell people is don't just go to a general surgeon, like seek out a hernia specialist because there might be, depending on the location, there might be something they can do to bring the muscles together, to overlap them in a sort of like an abdominoplasty to bridge it together and reinforce it rather than having a sheet of mesh in there.
yeah. Yeah, I will actually call her right after we're done because I wish I could bring her in. I'm like, "Mom, what are you doing? Hop on the podcast right now." Because yeah, she has a lot of the same stuff happening. She's older. She's, 68, 68. I think she's 68. She's 30 years older than me. But yeah, I mean, so your positive outlook today, what do you do to keep yourself at the frequency you're at? Because you seem very calm. You seem, like it's not really holding you down anymore. So what helps you
Mhm.
do that?
Yeah, I think it is a roller coaster. So ups and downs, you mentioned it before. And there's still, especially when everyone else is doing something, whether they're going out to a restaurant to eat or going to a game, for instance, those are things that I start feeling low about because I can't participate. But then I reflect on how far I've come in the last year and a half and say, "Well, do I want to sacrifice that and kind of go backwards in my healing journey and not be able to engage when we're together in environments that I can be in?" So I really try to focus on how far it's gone. And then especially when we hit those dips, those low points, I have to bring myself out of it as quickly as possible before I let that kind of affect
Mhm.
me. And when we get to that negative place, it kind of permeates through us and goes to our family members. And that's the last thing we want. We don't want them to feel that negative energy and that helplessness that is within us at the time. So I do a stop practice. And I picked this up from a couple of other programs that I've worked with. The Gupta program was one of the very first that helped me stop, acknowledge what's happening, accept it, and give myself grace. And then come with a plan to either get through it and whatever mechanism I have to use to get through it, whether it be laying down in bed with my gratitude journal and just resting and understanding, hey, life's gonna go on out there, and I have to make sure I get myself stable so I can join where I can. So that's one thing I often do. And then I start thinking about maybe there's some things that I allowed to tip my stress bucket. So really getting back down to our core needs and remembering that we have to think about ourselves and really I'm trying to say we don't want to allow the stress to get to the point where we're not allowing ourselves self-care time. And that's been big, like understanding, hey, I need to do some infrared sauna. I need to do some detox practices or meditation. I need to do 20 or 30 minutes of just me time. And
Mhm.
yeah, that's essentially what it comes down to. I could talk about the five pillars that I focus on. I have already mentioned diet. Rest is very crucial, like making sure I get to bed at a decent hour. And for me, that's probably earlier for you or most moms out there. But I also prepare myself for sleep, the circadian rhythm by dimming the lights, turning on red lights where possible, using blue light blockers if any technology is on, and so that I can fall asleep pretty quickly. I wake up early too, 5 o'clock in the morning every day. It's just my biological clock. And that gives me the time, like quiet time to kind of work myself up. So I'll get up, usually I do positive visualizations or I listen to something that's motivational. And then I do some like work time, some research time before the whole house starts waking up. I probably deviated from the question, but I can tell you
No,
all of
no. Go ahead,
it.
keep going, that's fine.
Yeah, and the course of my day, it's very standard. I think that it's also important to keep as consistent as possible when you're going through a healing journey, or if you're just trying to manage the emotional piece, like try to be as consistent as possible. Granted, with children, that sometimes goes out the window. Like right now, I have an 8-year old, nearly 8-year old. He's crawling around out here, but mm, yeah. So consistency is key. He wants to say hi real quick. Hello.
Oh, hi.
Hi. Okay, we'll be done in a little bit. Okay. Alright. Yeah, so much for him entertaining himself for a while. But they that's the thing about children. Like I guess it takes time for them to acknowledge and understand the limitations too, but they adapt. Like with
Mhm,
the consistency, they adapted.
mhm. Awesome. So you said that there was a hernia group that you were a part of?
Mhm.
Where is that, like, online, or do you meet up with them? Where's
No,
that
no.
at?
Yeah, it's actually in Facebook. There's several groups in there. If
Mhm.
people search
Okay.
hernia support groups, they'll pop in. Now some of them you I guess everyone knows when you go into support groups, usually people have been through the ringer. So there's a lot of feelings of isolation, and there's a lot of feelings again of hopelessness, but there's also the drive to help get the information out. So that's first and foremost. Like if we can get this information out and prevent other people from falling down the same path, that's bringing purpose to pain, for one. And then two is to understand that there's still hope. Like I have an abdominal wall that's denervated, my severe nerve damage on the left side, and there's nothing I can do about that. Structurally, there's no surgery to graft new nerves in there. So there's always going to be limitations, but then there's also ways to improve functionality in life. There's always ways to even manage a little bit better to chronic pain, and it doesn't always have to include pharmaceuticals. So I
Mhm.
think that these type of support groups are really good for offering that avenue and different insights for people to kind of gather their own information.
Nice. Nice. I love that. And when you say you meditate, is there any certain type of meditation that you do?
Yes. So I'm one of those that needs guided meditation. I'm not able
Mhm.
to. I mean, occasionally I can go out there and it's not really a meditation. It's more of a mindfulness that I sit um, wherever. I sit on the grass if I can get to the grass and I just listen. I'll close my eyes and like concentrate on one sense at a time. I'll listen to the birds and sometimes I hear cars, of course, but I'll listen to the birds and then after I do that for a few minutes, taking in my breath, I like to do the box breathing. So like 4 seconds in, holding at
Mhm.
4, coming back at 4, and then holding the exhale at 4. So I like that one. It's pretty easy to do, and then once you do a couple cycles, you don't have to think about that anymore. Then you can go on with the other senses. You open the eyes, you look at the trees blowing in the wind, the blue skies, the clouds. I try to figure in my science head, I try to figure out what kinds of clouds are out there. And yeah, just I guess the only sense I even use my sense of taste because I'll bring out there my little mushroom coffee and I'll sip on that, and that's my treat for the day. So
Mhm.
I'll do that every time I'm outdoors. And then for indoors, because I'm a type A personality and I find it really hard to shut down the to-do list. I'm always like,
Mhm.
multitasking or planning ahead. So I use this device that's called Brain Tap, and it's a pair of headphones that has light therapy. And what it is you connect it to the app on the phone or whatever. They're actually um, wireless, but I connect it directly because I'm trying to reduce EMS. Um, so this thing, it has binaural beats in there. It has the light therapy, and you can either have there's some that is music alone, there's some that is motivation, some that is breathing techniques. It's just an assortment of different practices that anyone can use. So I really advocate for that program, especially if people can't do the free form meditation.
That's amazing. What is that program called?
It's called Brain Tap, so one word,
Okay.
BRAINTAP, and it's awesome. I think that that's been the most successful one that I've implemented, and I do use it daily. I even have my son doing it with me at nighttime. That's how he goes
Mhm.
to sleep. So,
I
he's
love
a little
that.
bit older. He's 7. He's been doing it with me for that's one of the things we brought in since my disability began, like, "Hey, instead of watching TV till going to sleep time, we're going to do this 20-minute meditation," and now he asks for it. It's just a routine.
Mm. I love that. I love that so much. Yeah, I try to teach my son breathing. He's 4. And sometimes he'll get mad and he'll be like, and like you can tell he's trying, but most of the
Yeah.
time it goes out the window. But that's
And it
okay.
all begins
At
with a
least,
thought.
yes, it's starting. It's starting. My daughter, I don't know about her. I feel like she's just gonna be the way she is. She makes her own decisions.
How old's your daughter?
2.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah. So right now she's very much making her own decisions. It doesn't matter what we say, yes or no. Like we
Right.
say no and she's just all no. And we're like, yeah, that means something though. That's not just a word to repeat.
Yeah, and that's
So
good.
it's been hilarious. But yeah, so is there anything else you wanted to tell us about? Well, congratulations for how far you've come, first of all. And I'll be putting out all the vibes, prayers, whatever, and asking everybody to do the same, that this surgery, you won't need another one because it'll be fine. And that's that. Right. And then you can just improve on whatever's happening right now because,
Yes.
and who knows what the future holds. Right. Like sometimes there are things that are permanent that happen to us, but one thing that is changing every day is, people researching and trying new things to help the body. And it's just incredible how far we've come. So you never know, right? You never know. So,
Yeah.
and if not, then you adapt. And that is beautiful because that creates in my whole thing, it's like adapting creates, it's challenges, but when you get through those challenges you feel a little bit stronger and a little bit more powerful because you got through all of that and you're on the other side. So it's almost like I call it like a superpower when you have to go through something like that because not everybody with the quote like normalness, they don't get that like push and that edge to them and that need to pull yourself out of something. Do you know what I mean? Like if you've been super depressed or have gone through something physically just draining, you become a different person afterwards. There's a lot of
Right.
power behind that afterwards, and I just really respect that in people and the strength that they have to get through all of that. And I wanna thank you for being here. Thank you so much for sharing your story, and yeah, one more time, anything else you'd like to say or, you're gonna throw in the notes so we can, you know, put it out there even more?
Yeah, yeah, I do have a couple of things. I'm doing there's two surveys out there. One of them is from Dr. Tofi, who is a well-known hernia specialist, and she's doing data collection. So if anyone has experienced implant illness or they themselves, it doesn't even have to be hernia mesh, it could be breast implant, hip replacement, even dental implants, any type of symptoms that are undiagnosed. Well, we are requesting for people to fill out the survey. I have it linked on my social media pages and on my website as well. So Dr. Tofi has one, and I have one also geared towards in evaluating what holistic practices have helped, whether a person has had an explant or whether they still have the implant within, what types of holistic practices they've used, which ones have shown some benefits, and which ones really were just a waste of time and money. And so I'm kind of putting together the research and putting out infographics out there just to kind of advocate and help people understand what things can be done.
Amazing. And we'll keep up with you to make sure that as you keep putting those things out there, we're updating. So thank you so much for doing that work to help so many other people too. That's beautiful.
Thank you. I appreciate it. And thank you for everything. Thank you for putting this platform together. I know so many moms out there, they just want to know that they're not alone. And I love all of the mothers and just the parenting tips that everybody's been able to share.
Yeah. Moms can be, when you find your group, it's like the best connection in the world, right? It is. When you find your
Mhm.
group and you're like, yeah, me too. And then you're like, oh my gosh, finally, I'm not alone. Not going through this stuff alone. Other people understand me. And guess what? You get to be that for a lot of people now. So thank you for being on the show. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Take care.
Welcome to the end of another episode of the Mama Jack Real Raw Parenting Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Remember, parenting is a journey filled with ups and downs, and it's okay to make mistakes along the way. The Mama Jack Podcast is here to provide you with support, guidance, and real life stories from fellow parents who are navigating the challenges of raising children. If you have any questions, topics you'd like me to cover, or stories you'd like to share, please reach out to me. I love hearing from my listeners and incorporating your experiences into future episodes. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, and Podpage, all under the Mama Jack. TheMamaJac. Thank you for tuning in. Remember, you're not alone in this journey, and together we can create a supportive community of real, raw parents. Stay tuned for more episodes filled with laughter, tears, and everything in between. Until next time, keep being the amazing parent that you are.